What is up and welcome to the ICECAVE. Today we're going to talk about the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5's SSD capabilities and why that's important to you as a gamer. So if you're interested, stay tuned. We're going to go through all the information that we have, and I'm going to make sure to keep you guys updated so that you can make the most informed decision as a buyer whenever the time comes next month. So as a gamer, the main thing that we're doing when we open up the Xbox or the PlayStation, whatever it might be, obviously we're going to be playing games. So we want to get to that game as soon as possible, and the SSD is what allows us to do that. We want to get to the meat. We don't want to sit in and watch loading screens for 20 minutes during our gameplay. We want to play the game. We want to enjoy the content. That's what it's all about. And the developers and the engineers have used the SSDs in such a way that we'll be able to instantly play the game, and this is huge. So for the remainder of this video, we're going to go through the SSD for both the PlayStation and the Xbox. I'm going to show you the difference between the two, and at the end of the video, we're going to try and determine, hey, who is the clear winner in this fight? Is it Xbox? Is it PlayStation? Who is it? Who has the best storage? And how can we compare the two together? Unlike in Red Dead Redemption 2, when you had to wait over a minute or very close to a minute to be able to play the game, in these new consoles, you're going to be able to play the game instantly. You're going to be able to press the button and be immediately into the action, and the SSD is what is going to allow that to happen. So not only talking about the speed of the SSD, but we're also talking about the size of the SSD. Why is the size important? Not only is a lot of fast storage needed, but a lot of storage itself is needed. The number of gigabytes, the number of terabytes, that is important information, and these new SSDs are not that big. At the end of the day, when you have a game like Call of Duty that is maxing out almost at 250 gigs now with the latest update, they haven't split the game. And so in games like that, where games are taking so much space of your SSD, it's important to have a large amount of space. So these new consoles have the ability to put additional storage in through either a proprietary method or through your traditional NVMe M.2 slot with the PS5. Speaking of NVMe, that is the technology that allows these SSDs to operate so much faster than your typical SATA drive. In fact, it's up to 25 times faster than your SATA drive. And both the PlayStation and the Xbox both use NVMe for their expansion ports and their onboard SSDs, and this is so important to maintain that quick speed. And now we're going to transition over to talking about the PlayStation 5. The PlayStation 5 has an onboard memory size of 825 gigabytes. That's right, 825 gigabytes of NVMe storage. Now hold up, we need to talk about the amount of usable storage out of the 825 gigabytes. The amount of usable storage is only 665 gigabytes, with over 100 gigs being used by the OS and system files. As a gamer, you might say, hey, that's barely enough for 2 games. Well, thankfully, PlayStation 5 does have an M.2 NVMe 4.0 expansion slot. And that NVMe expansion slot has a speed of up to 5.5 gigabytes per second. Yes, I did say 5.5 gigabytes per second read speed. That's not just the expansion slot. The onboard memory has that capability of the 5.5 gigabytes speed, and that 5.5 gigabytes of speed, that is how you're loading these games so fast. Now, that doesn't come with a catch though. Sony is saying that you must have a Sony certified SSD in order to run an M.2 in the expansion slot. Now, my thought behind this is, as long as that SSD supports up to or at least the same speed that is supported by the SSD controller or the NVMe controller, which is 5.5 gigabytes, then you should be fine. Now, they haven't came out and released any SSDs that are compatible with the PlayStation yet, but Western Digital has announced that they're going to be releasing an NVMe M.2 SSD with speeds up to 7 gigabytes. So that would be perfect for the PlayStation 5 if it's Sony certified. But we'll wait and we'll see what happens. Now, you might be asking, how do you put the M.2 SSD into the PlayStation 5? Well, I'm glad you asked, because recently they did a teardown of the PlayStation 5 and they showed exactly where you can insert that M.2. You can open up the PlayStation 5 and you can put the SSD right in there. I'm going to throw a picture up here and you'll be able to see the exact spot that you can put that drive in, and then it will connect to the system and you can load all of your content onto that drive so that you're using less space on the PlayStation 5. Now compare that to the PlayStation 4's 100 megabytes of read speed compared to the 5.5 gigabytes of read speed with the PlayStation 5. That is a massive leap for the next generation consoles, and it's going to continue to allow for amazing games that we can get into immediately. Now, we talked about the PlayStation 5, we talked about how much onboard storage it has, and we've also talked about the expansion capabilities that is going to come native with the PlayStation 5. So let's transition over to the Xbox Series X and let's talk about not only the onboard storage with it, but also the expansion capabilities and what you're going to have to buy if you want to increase the storage for your games. The Xbox Series X is going to have a 1 terabyte SSD with 802 of those being usable. Okay, so the Xbox has over 100 gigs more. It comes with a terabyte. However, what is the speed of that storage? I'm glad you asked. The speed of the storage is 2.4 gigabytes, which isn't quite as much as the PlayStation 5. In fact, it's over half as much as the PlayStation 5. Now, the real question is, how is the Xbox going to utilize the storage? Is it going to be able to use it in a way that is efficient for gaming? Are we going to notice a difference between 2.4 gigabytes and the 5.5 gigabytes used by the PlayStation 5? And honestly, we won't know until we're able to compare the two consoles together. Okay, so now we know the size of the SSD and the speed of the SSD, but how do you upgrade the SSD on the Xbox? To upgrade the SSD on the Xbox Series X, you're going to have to buy a proprietary memory stick. It's kind of like the old ones from the very first Xbox, where you had to buy a memory stick that you could take around with you. The only difference is that this SSD is $200, over $200, so you're paying half the system price for an SSD. The SSD is going to be simply taken and inserted on the back of the device. Unlike with the PlayStation, you have to open up the entire case to be able to get to the SSD. Well, the Xbox, you're going to be able to just plug it in right in the back, which is nice and simple. The only downside is it's proprietary. Now, I don't think that you can do that with the PlayStation. Unfortunately, taking the M.5 out and plugging it into another PlayStation 5 is probably not going to work. We talked about the Xbox Series X, and we've talked about the PlayStation 5. We've spoken about the internal hard drive capabilities, how fast they're going to be, the amount of storage that's going to be on board. We've talked about how you can upgrade that storage. Now, there's another question. Can you use external drives with these systems? And the answer is yes, you can use external drives with systems, but there's a catch. You're not going to be able to play PS5 games and Xbox Series X optimized games on those external hard drives. In order to play those games, you're going to have to move the game from the external hard drive over to the internal SSD, whether that be for the PlayStation 5 over to the M.2 SSD or the internal SSD, or for the Xbox moving it over to the internal SSD or that proprietary SSD that you've purchased. Although you can't play PlayStation 5 games or Xbox Series X optimized games on these external drives, you are going to be able to play PlayStation 4 games, and you're also going to be able to play games that are backwards compatible with the Xbox Series X on those external hard drives. So we've made it this far. We've talked about the SSD and how it's going to benefit you as a gamer, why it's so important for next generation consoles. We talked about the PlayStation 5, the amount of storage that it has on board, and how fast that storage is going to be. We talked about the Xbox Series X, and we've talked about how much storage it's going to have and how fast that storage is going to be. Let's compare the two together for just a moment. Is it going to be better to have 2.4 gigabytes of read speed with the Xbox Series X, or is it going to be better to have 5.5 gigabytes of read speed with the PlayStation 5? Ultimately, we're not going to know yet. That's a lot of speed that can be utilized by developers in their games, and we're going to need to wait till we can have both consoles on hand to be able to compare them together to see exactly how fast they're going to be, how they're going to utilize the storage, and we need to know how the devs are using them within their applications to see which is faster. Based on the information we have so far, I'm thinking that the PlayStation 5 is going to be faster, though I am curious to see, once we have tests of both devices compared side by side, which is going to win, how they're going to utilize that read speed, how they're going to utilize their NVMe SSDs in the Zen 2 architecture. It's going to be super interesting for this next generation, and I'm really looking forward to it. Well, thank you so much for stopping by the ICECAVE. I really appreciate your time, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video. Thank you so much.